As if you could kill time without injuring eternity. Henry David Thoreau. All that I have in this life is a little time. Perhaps that is all anyone ever has. I am aware that time is very precious and not too much is left. When I was a child, if my mother said that I had an hour to play, it seemed like a lifetime. The possibilities within that time were limitless. I had very little past, and the future seemed entirely open. Time moved very slowly. Perhaps from a need to lay out some benchmarks, I wrote a life plan when I was 10. Although I forgot all about the plan, my mother did not, and years later she resurrected it, and to my great embarrassment, proudly showed it to her friends. The first item said, "Win national tennis championship by age 23. I had looked up the ages of all national tennis champions and discovered this was the average. The second item, obtain a doctorate by age 27. I do not know why I selected 27, except that it seemed about as young as was dignified for one to be a doctor. The third item was get married and settle down by age 30. The first two items presented few complications. I won my national tennis championship at 24 and completed medical school at 23, well ahead of schedule. These and other experiences were providing me with a respectable past. As I was busily engaged in work and play, my personal sense of time had quickened. The year was 1950, and President Truman sent the U.S. Armed Forces to fight in Korea. As a Navy Reserve officer, I was ordered to report. At my first station, I was examined, pronounced physically fit, and given new orders for duty. But en route, I developed a fever and entered a nearby naval hospital. There was an unexpected change of plans in my childhood agenda, and there began a future life for which I was totally unprepared. Without warning, my body had failed me. In a few hours, I was transformed from a doctor to a patient, from an athlete to a cripple. Polio ravaged me so that I could not move. I could not stand, walk, sit, eat, drink, or even breathe by myself. When I first got sick, I could move nothing below my head, and I even had some paralysis of my face. For the entire first year and a half, I lay flat on my back in an iron lung. I was hospitalized for 3 years, and there was some very gradual improvement, but hardly enough to be noticed. The person I had known myself to be was quite suddenly trapped in an alien body, one which did not perform automatically on command, or indeed even perform at all. As a consequence, I came to know time in a quite different way. I would ask a nurse what time it was. She would answer, 1 o'clock. I would then wait and wait and wait. After what seemed 2 or 3 hours, I would ask again. Her answer might be 3 minutes after 1. I was sure it was a trick, some practical joke designed to torment me. I knew what an hour was like, and the difference between a couple of hours and a couple of minutes. Similar episodes were repeated over and over with different people at every hour of the day and night. Minutes and seconds seemed endless. The mass that I had called my body had changed, and time had changed with it. I learned firsthand about relative qualities of time and space. Although I hardly interpreted the subject in such a lofty mode, I had a little peek into what Einstein had described. Without motion, time seemed to have slowed so considerably that it almost stopped. The smooth flow from past to present to future had ceased. Without familiar sources of pleasure and meaning, there was no future. Those things I had been moving toward were gone. They had simply disappeared. The movement of time was blocked, making the present interminable, lifeless, and dead. The past, however, was a different story. I spent my time reviewing it as a moment of glory, detailing its pleasures and even its failures. The past had expanded as the future had closed. I began to understand that the kind of time I was now living by was dramatically different from my past experience of time duration. I had told time subjectively before, by moving through space and utilizing the benchmarks of accomplishments. Now, as I lay helpless, completely passive, my own time had stopped moving.